Anita Fiori is a lead expert at IDB Lab, so I wish you all a very good session. You may begin. This is a very innovative PPP mode, as payments are made through outcome. They occur based on performance and not based on delivery. We ran an experiment in Colombia led by Daniel. So Daniel, tell us a little bit about the Corona Foundation, all of the bonuses and all of the results so far, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Sorry for not speaking Portuguese. I think that you can translate that locally. It's a pleasure to be here in this event. And Fundación Corona is a family foundation that has worked nearly 60 years in Colombia in favor of social development in country, especially developing models, innovating models to promote social mobility. So for 5 years, we've been working together with the IDB and with the SECO Swiss Foundation to develop the Social Impact Bonds program. It's a program and our foundation executed to develop this type of mechanisms in the country, to develop them in employing vulnerable populations, generating evidence not only for Colombia, but for the Latin American country, understanding that Colombia was the first to develop these projects for social impact. So what is a social impact bond? It's not a bond that is issued. It is not an issued bond. It's a payment contract based on results that have been in place for a long time, but this is a contract where we transfer the risks to a private investor that finances the working capital required by the operator to get their results. Once the results are achieved, the payer, which is a public entity, because if you want to have a social impact bond, it has to be linked to a public association. We have to understand who pays for the results. And for example, what have we done in Colombia? In Colombia, we have launched 4 social impact bonds. In the region, we have another one that began in Argentina, also for employment in Buenos Aires. And I think that these are very interesting schemes. We were trying to promote employment in vulnerable populations based on public agencies, but we did not know what results these agencies were achieving. So we mapped 15 projects for employment. So we were seeing how many people were trained, but not how many people were employed or how many remained in employment. So the first thing, you can have about 700 people, and these 700 people are within the bonus standards. So we have more than 700 bonus globally, and it was paid only for people who were considered vulnerable and who had an employment at least for 3 months. In this case, the Corona Foundation was an intermediate, and we were the ones that had this responsibility as an investment together with 2 other important foundations in that country, which is Bolívar La Vivienda and Santo Domingo. And we found some other partners in the territory to implement the project. When we collected the first evidence, and then the IDB found that this was an PPP, that these were projects that were aimed at achieving certain social transformations. And then we saw how the ministries of finance and other public agencies saw that we were like a social PPP. Instead of building roads or bridges, we were building projects to favor vulnerable social people. So between the first and the second bond was achieved because Colombia was able to promote the social impact bonds as a social tool, because they achieve effectiveness, transparencies, and you can collect evidence. And after the 2 first bonds, where the IDB functioned as a payer to leverage the interest of the public sector in Colombia, both locally and nationally, we went through a transition that we built the fund of payments per results. And today we can see that the scale of the social impact bonds creates funds the institutions required so the public agencies can pay based on results and can overpass annualities, because the results are more medium and long term. So we have worked with the IDB and other public agencies to build these funds to pay based on results. And in the first 3 years of the project, we created 2 funds. In 2021, we had one, and now we have created 2 more funds of payments based on results. So we have created a tool that promotes public innovation, effectiveness, efficiency, and this is the tools that we have assessed the most. We have an impact assessment that showed that the results for employment of women was better with these projects. We also had the assessments of processes, and we believe that understanding these processes in the government as a social public-private partnership that allows to channel different resources, not only public resources, to achieve greater scale. It's an opportunity to focus on certain themes and certain indicators that are good for public policy. I can't hear you, Anita, sorry.
I was saying that I'm a big fan of social impact bonuses, and I really dream of having such a thing in Brazil. We are learning and trying to hear you very closely to learn from your previous experiences. Now I would like to turn the floor over to our colleague, Marco Bego. He is the Chief Innovation Officer of Clínicas Hospital. Marco, your innovation approach in terms of a public and private arrangement was a bit different. Could you please tell us a little bit about your Innovation Hub project at Clínicas Hospital? This is another project that we did together. Please tell us a little bit about the project and what are the results that you were able to reach so far. Good morning, Anita. Well, thank you so much for this invitation. I would like to thank all of the other organizers that help us with this IBD project. I would like to also say hello to Ricardo and Marcos. As you're saying, Anita, this is a project that we've been developing together with IDB Lab. It started with the idea, with a call from IdeaGov, so integrating the government part of the PPP. This project combined ourselves, APT and Prodesp, in addition to the government. So this project started right at the onset of the pandemic. We had several problems and we needed the private sector to help us solve the problems. In addition, that was a very difficult moment because we had a lot of offerings and we couldn't organize everything. Therefore, we put together a structured way of operation. We divided all of the projects into different problems. And from then on, we made a connection with some startups. And to our surprise, even at the beginning, we received many technological offerings. And at the same time, we were looking for technologies that were really challenging and disruptive in terms of machine learning, digitalization of the patient's journey. We wanted to obtain, electronic signals through the intensive care units, etc. So even with very high state-of-the-art technology, we got many offerings. And with that, we were able to organize. Our first offerings, we had almost 150 startups and companies presenting their offerings to us. And at the end of the first round, where we had to choose, the best ones, we had 18 startups working inside the hospital during the pandemic, developing their products, doing proof of concept and prototyping their ideas. And today, we are already on the third wave of the project. We already chose the startups that really were able to go through the initial phase. Some projects were really fantastic. And now we are in the phase of the initial hiring so that we can continue to use the products for an additional year. And then after that, we would do all of the regulation necessary. We had an intense support from the public prosecutor's office of the state. We ran a trial that was then certified, but now we understand all of the processes, and this was a project that was really fast at the beginning, and the agreement with IDB happened really fast. And then you may ask me, okay, so everything is fine, we found our model, but there are some setbacks as well. The project started about a year or a year and a half ago. We are now almost at the end of the project. It's approaching its finale. But even now, we haven't had a signed agreement from the government to start giving the first steps with the startup. We've been trying to get signatures for the past year, so that we can move on to the second phase. Then I must say that we found a very interesting model. I mean, the legal framework of the startups is already in place. We already know how to use it in an adequate way. Well, they were telling me that I was looking the other way. I have to look at the audience. So now, once we understand how things work, and now that we are ready to reap the benefits from all of these technologies, maybe what we need to do now is to just expedite the process in all of the areas that we want to use it for. So in all of the public sector, private sector, in terms of technology and healthcare. So what we need to do now is to get all of that bureaucracy organized. Well, I think you are in the right place now. You are really in the right place. So this is the event on PPPs, gathering IDB and the government of the state of São Paulo. So I really think you are in the right place at the right time. Maybe so now you can have all of the documentation signed. So far, we talked about two different ways of embracing innovation in a PPP arrangement. So first, we talked about how to do that through a change in product, which is the bonus of social impact. And this works especially well when we talk about social PPPs. And now, Marco gave us this wonderful example of the Clínicas Hospital, meaning that you can use innovation from startups, technological innovation at the level of the end product, and take it into the public health care area. And these were two very different approaches, but we wanted to bring you these examples just to inspire you. Now I have a third example, and that's the example of Vox Capital. It's a private sector example, but I believe that their arrangement with the Clínicas Hospital can be very inspiring to some public organizations. So Marcus, please tell us about what you do. You're a venture capital fund, and now you are just embarking on this new venture, or adventure, I could also say it that way. So you're working with a very special venture capital focusing on health. So can you please tell us how this combination started with Albert Einstein Hospital? And also, I would also like to ask you, how could you collaborate with the Clínicas Hospital project? Maybe we get out of this panel with another project, another PPP project. Well, thank you to the organizers. Thank you for inviting me to join this panel. I am the venture capital officer at Vox Capital. I think we are pioneers in terms of impact, social impact venture capital, not only in Brazil, but also in Latin America. I think we've been operating in this area for about 10 years. Our first fund started in 2012 when impact social venture capital was still operating at a void. but we learned a lot throughout this journey, and we could even refer to some initial projects back in 2012, 2014, using venture capital. Even though there are different jurisdictions, back then that was not a very well-known practice and was not named that way in Brazil. So what happened then, if we look back 10 to 12 years ago? In our corporate venture capital with the hospital Albert Einstein, a few interesting things happened. The Einstein Hospital is already a very innovative organization. The hospital has several milestones from the past, dating back from 1971, and they were the first hospital to acquire, magnetic machines in Brazil, and that led us to start an incubator in 2017, just 4 years ago. So the evolution of this internal job, maybe we could call it an R&D job that solves the innovator's dilemma, because sometimes it's difficult for you to do some innovation internally. Maybe we can draw a parallel between what we see in the public sector, because sometimes they have a difficult time to innovate because they already have cultural issues and some ways of doing things that are difficult to change. So sometimes it's difficult to innovate within the public sector. Therefore, you have to start innovating almost like using an auxiliary lung, and that auxiliary lung would be that fund that gathers many different entities, or maybe a manager that is there managing an investment instrument, and then they would have a free mandate to invest in innovation and startups. So the main objective of this venture capital fund from the Einstein Hospital was to help develop, efficiency in that area in the country. And this is the core reason for the organization to operate. Maybe they could also operate in some very specific verticals. And by the same token, they could also allocate capital with other purposes rather than just to develop their ecosystem. I like to draw a comparison with venture capital with a more socialized investment. Back then, many organizations innovated close to their core business because, they would discover patents, and little by little, some organizations on the private sector are learning now that you can collaborate, you can co-invest, you can have several funds, combined, and maybe in even other jurisdictions you can have funds that also combine private and public sector investment. With BNDES, we have many other investments that operate similarly to this one. So there are many opportunities. I believe that collaboration when it comes to the health industry is very clear, at least in my opinion, because you have several symmetries. In regards to capital, private capital, you invest in a fund like this, maybe thinking more like our similar Vox funds, not only those of venture capital. So you are motivated to invest in verticals in where some agents believe that you will be able to solve problems and face different symmetries or asymmetries that we have in the country. So like education, financial access to financial services, environmental issues, and combine things that in such a way that the sequence of investments makes you have another vision of the portfolio. And in my view, this can go beyond what is traditionally present today. There is a potential intersection that may not be so widely exploited. And I think it's important to collaborate. It's important that we collaborate maybe at the level of technology and startups. If you invest in startups, you can call startups that can solve specific issues that also go into a maturity curve that is longer. And there are some capitals like the Elbogris, like there has to be a mix of knowledge, work, capital, and you can put together a fund with an education organization or a foundation. So there have been attempts to do that with blended finance, which is one of the ways. Every investor would invest with their own characteristics, with their own objectives, and maybe you could find like an umbrella that can cover everything. So in addition to all of the symmetries, you have to have a beam of laser that will allow you to collaborate to all of the pieces of the puzzle that fit together. So I think this is very important in the healthcare section.
That's a very interesting point. I imagine Marco's startups and INOVA HC just running to you to get your consultancy services. I'm also considering that at the IBD, we have a lot of experience, and the greatest innovators, they came from the FPPP Foundation. These were academic projects that were in the drawers of this foundation. And in a way, at some point, they let them to reach us, and they may also reach you. So maybe FPPP could do this, help them, or encourage them to look for you. So Marco, you and FPPP Foundation are creating this healthcare technology ecosystem that can help the private sector significantly. As Marco said, we have a whole map of startups, and he was a trailblazer in this area. I'd now like to give the floor to Ricardo. Ricardo, who is in the state of São Paulo, and I know that the government of the state of São Paulo has many initiatives to embrace PPP initiatives. Can you give us some examples? Thank you. First of all, thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and congrats to the IBD, especially Carolina, Lembo, and Beatriz. These are great people. Now I'd like to take the cue on what you've mentioned. People say they need to work, they need to create opportunities, but they also need to live. And I'd like to invite or take a step back in our conversation. Yesterday, I had the privilege of attending some of the panels, and in most of them, the topic was innovation. And innovation is jargon today. Everyone says they want to innovate, but what does that mean? This panel is crucial in this conference because we are now bringing up this narrative of technological innovation, and this is crucial, especially in PPPs. And I'd like to talk about a specific project, or the International Technology Innovation Center, which the government of the state of São Paulo is managing. This is a very broad, multi-phase project. I'll talk about phase 2. In phase 2, we want to create an innovation district. And more specifically, everyone that know about innovation, you've probably heard about the term Silicon Valley, where tech companies, startups are. You have university campuses. And this concept is, as we are, so fast, and the production of technology has been evolving so fast, things have changed. And we now talk about a 15-minute city where you work, where you find restaurants, supermarkets, and you can generate create opportunities for entrepreneurs. The government of the state of São Paulo is using this concept to create City 2. Where will it be located? In an area called Jaguaré. It's an amazing area, very close to universities and the production hub of the state of São Paulo. And this will be erected. We will have a district with restaurants and homes and many other products. Following this idea, this notion of a residency or a living. And we will then create opportunities for innovation to take place. This is a huge area, close to the Tietê River, close to the University of São Paulo campus, and close to other innovation centers. It has about 190,000 square meters. Everyone is invited to participate in this, the technical concept as it is developed. And this is crucial, a crucial phase in PPP projects. We listen to the market, all stakeholders, everyone who wants to support our projects. And that's what we call the market sound. So it is now open and everyone is invited to participate through our partnership platform. So go to our website. So everyone is invited. And we're talking about 1.1 billion reals, 1.91 billion reals, sorry, to be invested in this infrastructure in about 30 years. That's about 15 million reals in investment to create this innovation district. So we will have different focuses for entrepreneurs and everyone who's interested in developing technology there. And based on this, we need synergy for innovation, in particular technological innovation. Thank you. That was great. So we have a fourth way, if you will, right? You're thinking about a project that is a whole innovation district, and that's a PPP. From the very beginning, from it's ground zero from its birth, if you will. So there's many ways to embrace innovation in the context of PPPs, or in Spanish, APPs. Now I have a question. I believe we still have some time, about 2 to 3 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So can you now briefly tell me, in 1 or 2 words, okay, what is missing? Or rather, what are the major obstacles that prevent us from adding more innovation in public-private or private-public partnerships? A couple of words, okay? And that's how I'd like to close our panel. Who would like to start? Can I? Sure. Concept. This is the word. I believe we need concepts, and this is from the perspective of public managers. Public managers need tools. Innovation will not be necessarily at the core of projects. Innovation may be also a tool for public managers to develop PPP projects. I'll give you one example. The use of AVIs, or automatic vehicles. This technology is widely present in the city of São Paulo. These are devices that you put in cars for example, in toll gates. So this technology is great. It can generate innovation in PPP projects. We already have projects using this technology to give discounts to frequent users. So those that use this technology have pay rates that are close to local users. So you have frequent users as opposed to local users. They get discounts. And then there's another tool that we call free flow. So with this, they can you won't need toll gates. because they will pay rates depending on the amount of the road that is used. So that's really great innovation, and that's what we need, technological innovation, to make these things happen. It will make it easier to manage these projects politically, financially, legally. That's what I had to say. Concept. Okay, very good. Concept. Who else? Daniel, Marcos? Well, one word, alignment. So briefly, alignment of interests, alignment of goals, approaches to solutions, and that's different from alignment for goals. To close, as we're running out of time. As when I was a bank treasurer, alignment of assets and liabilities, where the money comes from and the purpose to which this money will be put. So it's really a treasurer's perspective. And so with a lot of alignment, with aligned perspectives, you can unleash capital that needs to be used in the long run. And I don't want to, take money from the public sector to apply them or contribute to projects, but that's what we need. Projects that may yield results that are even better than venture capital projects in 15 or even 30 years. Imagine the pension funds. We have beneficiaries now that will live 100 years. Well, so we need that these people, when they are 70, they will need this money, and they need these projects to remain profitable. Right. Asset and liability alignment. Daniel?
Concept, alignment. But I think that something else that's important is forming public government workers so that they're ready for innovation and that they understand innovation and create new champions that promote this new type of PPPs. So we have it. We have this capacity to embrace these types of changes. In Colombia, we have it. We have the Beat Lab. We've got the Internet Lab. They really make the transformation happen, and they bet on them. You mentioned that in Latin America, that there's a lot of little quote-unquote Silicon Valleys. We can set up a Latin American network that would overcoming these barriers. So I think training some of the government workers would be much more beneficial to all of us to achieve more PPPs.
Marco Bego. Sorry, the best for last. Well, I'd say that this multidisciplinary approach is crucial. In innovation, there's always an imbalance of forces. You have a small startup working for the government. And so multidisciplinary efforts, everyone who's in charge of the legal matters, they should understand that a startup shouldn't be treated as a multinational company that uses innovation. When they have an innovation project, there's a time for them to get there. So I believe that multidisciplinary actors can improve our innovation project significantly, and then we could better orchestrate benefits. And people lose this connection, and we miss great opportunities to make things work. Sorry, she is probably muted. The speaker has probably forgot to turn on her microphone. No one can hear her. So this is the quote of the year. In fact, for 2 years, it's been the quote of the year. We're running out of time now, so you made great contributions, everyone. I'm really happy to have had the opportunity of showing our audience different ways discussing innovation in private-public partnerships or asociaciones público-privadas. I'm Anita Fiori. I'm a leader expert in the IBD Innovation Lab. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you to our speakers, Ricardo. Thank you for coming, Uribe and Marcos. Greetings, and thank you very much for talking to us. I hope you enjoy this conference. The content is amazing. And again, I'd like to thank the organizers. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.